first time I've introduced you. So last time I introduced Arthasiddhi, actually it was before he was Arthasiddhi. You might remember this, before he went off on his ordination retreat. So back in 2003. So a little bit has happened since then. So yeah, just a little bit about Arthasiddhi. Try not to say too much. So the most important thing to know about Arthasiddhi is that, I was going to say the same about yours actually, yours is a bit...
Oh yeah, that's friendship for
thank you. Good. Yeah, the most important thing to know about Arthasiddhi is that he's from Yorkshire, so do bear that in mind when you're talking to him. And yeah, he first came along to the Sheffield Buddhist Centre. Interesting actually, I've forgotten this minor detail. We were in Sheffield at the same time. We were both at university. I should add, I finished my degree. Arthasiddhi just did about 3 months, I think, of yours. And we think we worked out we were at the same club night.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, you weren't. I think walking into the Sheffield Buddhist Centre made a big impression on you. I think that the welcome that you got. But it wasn't long before they shipped him off to Windhorse, which is where we met Windhorse Evolution in Cambridge, which was and remains, yes, the biggest right livelihood venture in Sri Ratna, which lasted, I guess, 30 odd years, closed in 2015. And yeah, Arthasiddhi quickly got involved there, firstly packing boxes, and then moving boxes around and doing different things with boxes with giftware inside, and then later going on the van team. And yeah, over that time we spent a lot of time with each other, including living in community, asked for ordination, obviously, doing lots of retreats. I was just thinking about this, it really was a semi-monastic lifestyle, wasn't it? It's yeah, living in a men's community like actually David and Remy and Shura are doing now the last month or so. Yeah, working largely with men and yeah, doing lots of retreats. And then yeah, ordained in 2003. And then I think it wasn't that long after you came back you took on being a manager, which was a formative period. And then did you leave Windhorse in 2012?
Yeah, end of 2012. I think, yeah.
And went to work in the Cambridge Buddhist Centre. Yeah, Windhorse is in Cambridge, did I mention that? And then did a lot, like really took on the Young People's Project.
Prior to that, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
when I was still young.
When you're still young, yeah, right. And Mitra convening, and yeah, it's still Mitra convening in Cambridge. And yeah, since going to the centres, yeah, really played a key role in shaping the direction and the vision of the centre there, including being one of 3 chairs, a triumvirate chair. And yeah, Arthasiddhi's ordained 3 guys and is Kalyana Mitra to several. In terms of Arthasiddhi's qualities, he's a very good and loyal friend. I can attest to that, and yeah, I feel very fortunate to have Arthasiddhi as a good friend. Arthasiddhi is very interested in people, so yeah, it might seem a bit paradoxical that Arthasiddhi is introverted by nature and is very much a thinker. He's very much his own man, but he's also interested, so fascinated with other people, with their particularities, what makes them tick, and yeah, I think the combination of those put him in very good stead to, yeah, can be a very good friend, as I said, interested in, yeah, drawing out the best in people, and is able to kind of have quite an objective sense of people. And I think it's easy when we're in friendship, in relationship, to not quite see the other person because we're sort of caught in our feeling responses to them. And I think Arthasiddhi is particularly good at kind of, unhooking from that and having a sense of them. Also, actually, very good at having a sense of yourself objectively. I've always been quite, struck by that, the degree to which you can have a sense of what's what's going on. It's quite challenging to acknowledge what's going on for us sometimes, and yeah, I've always been struck by that. And then part of that is then knowing what you need to do as a result of that. Yeah, and as it's fitting for our theme today, Arthasiddhi is inspired about friendship, so I hope he's feeling inspired this morning.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as well as friendship, Arthasiddhi is very much into to the arts. He's long been a singer and has led various choirs in his time in Triratna. And yeah, he's particularly interested in contributing to a new culture of Buddhist culture in the West. You know, we don't really have that, do we? Like if you look at Tibetan culture or historical places where Buddhism has been somewhere for a very long time, the whole culture is built up around that, and Buddhism is so new in the West. So yeah, it's an area of interest of Arthasiddhi's, and he has done various experimental choral works in settings of pujas, which personally I found to be very kind of effective and evocative. Maybe just lastly to say, these days Arthasiddhi's still living in Cambridge, still in the same community that we lived in. I think is it 27 years you've been there, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
And for most of that time, actually, with his very good friend and private preceptor, Arthasiddhi, and who is last year received a terminal cancer diagnosis. So that's a big part of Arthasiddhi's life. Now Arthasiddhi's been centrally involved in Arthasiddhi's care, and has also conducted several interviews with Arthasiddhi, which I'd really recommend actually on YouTube. They've been very well received. But now it's me doing the interviewing, so maybe just very lastly to say, obviously he's a busy man, has a lot on. He's about actually to go off to welcome to Gukyaloka, which maybe not all of you have heard of. It's our men's retreat centre in Spain. Going to lead a bunch of guys on a working retreat, I think for a week, and then take a well-earned solitary for a couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm really delighted that he's found time to come and see us today. So let's welcome him. At some point yesterday, I imagined sitting here with blank pieces of paper for my interview. It's like, what are my questions? And then this morning I come in a bit early to print out questions that I did come up with, and I opened a document. My drive said Arthasiddhi interview, and document was blank. So that was an interesting little moment, and then I realised, okay, I've got another document Arthasiddhi interview. So I've got some questions. Maybe firstly to say, this is, I think I counted, it's the 7th one of these we've done, which I think is worth celebrating. We've had various people come to see us and talk to us. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. Previously we've talked to our special guest, and me or Arijit has asked them a lot of questions about their life, their journey, as well as different topics. But today I thought it would be interesting to try just going into a certain theme in a bit more detail. And as I say that, I realise I've got a timepiece. Okay. And someone with a programme tell me what time I'm supposed to be teaching. 10 past.
20 past.
20 past. Okay, good. We've got sort of time that we wanted to have. So yeah, we've got 50 minutes or so. So yeah, and that theme is friendship. So wanting to see if in the time that we've got, if we can kind of go into that theme and kind of get underneath it a bit. Probably most of you have heard that the Buddha said, or Ananda said, to the Buddha, Lord, he had this realization, Lord, the spiritual Kalyana Mitra, spiritual friendship, is but half of the spiritual life. He's realised how significant Kalyana Mitra, spiritual friendship, is. And he's saying to the Buddha, I've realised it's half the spiritual life. And the Buddha says, say not so, Ananda. Kalyana Mitra is the whole of the spiritual life. So yeah, probably most of you might have heard that. But what does that mean? So I'm hoping that in our time together we can kind of try and get underneath that. Why would the Buddha have said spiritual friendship is the whole of the spiritual life? Yeah, my hope is that in doing that we can kind of maybe that can inform how we value and how we practice friendship in the Sangha. Right, okay, I'm just realising this is a bit where I stop talking and get Arthasiddhi to say a bit.
Somebody says that.
Don't talk too much. Let him say a bit. So I thought it'd be good to just hear a bit about early influences, early inspiration in the area of friendship. Could be Buddhist, or non-Buddhist. Maybe how that's kind of shaped your outlook.
Right, interesting. Yeah, going back how far? The playground.
Maybe a bit after the playground.
A bit after the playground. Yeah. God. I mean, I guess, just temperamentally. I mean, as a grown-up younger brother, elder sister, my brother's very gregarious, and he was always making new friends and dropping them and making new ones, and that was more the sort of shape of his social life, and I was more a sort of small number of friends that I'd then kind of stick with. So that was a noticeable pattern. But I think really it wasn't until what do you call it, senior school, where I was at boarding school, hated it, and my climbing partner, we were also in maths and physics classes together, we were hanging out a lot. Somehow that sort of situation, out of that situation, a friendship sort of really, of someone who I didn't particularly initially wasn't particularly drawn to. He was rather a sort of nerd, and a friendship just sort of emerged out of sort of increasing kind of time together, and particularly the context of climbing together, rock climbing together, where you have each other's lives in each other's hands. Suddenly there's this sort of intimacy of trust, deep trust. And that, and a context of actually just having the space to kind of say what we really thought, that sort of opened up that sort of space to say what we really thought. And I guess I experienced something I'd never experienced before. I experienced this level of communication. I suppose it was sort of, what was it? Kind of moving into access concentration or something, that extraordinary experience of communication where suddenly you're just sort of effortlessly involved, and you come out of it and you think, oh, what was that? We just sort of went deeper together. And I think in some ways that disrupted my life, actually. I think those sort of deep experiences of friendship, after that, nothing else sort of made any sense without that. Oddly, I hadn't quite worked out, get this, that friendship was important to me, if you see what I mean. It's odd, isn't it, when you're in that situation at school, you don't realise the extent to which circumstances are enabling certain experiences. I thought sort of friendship would just be part of life, but it's not, is it? You go to university, and then after university, you can find yourself in an environment where friendship is sort of bordering on impossible, at least limited in lots of ways, limited to kind of sort of sporting kind of camaraderie, which could go a bit deeper, but it might not actually. It might be sort of quite limited, and then the working situation. So interestingly, when I came along to Sri Lanka, I hadn't worked out that friendship was really important to me, even though the most formative experience of my life was an experience of friendship. I think that says something perhaps about our society. It doesn't sort of reflect back friendship as a value. And I think I could, if I hadn't come across Sri Ratna and a rich context of friendship, I think I could just have drifted from that and not quite worked out that something was really missing in my life that was really important to me. I don't know that, but I suspect that probably was the case. Anyway, so that, I think that was a really formative friendship. And it wasn't until Sri Ratna that I encountered anything of a similar nature. Or intensity.
Interesting. That we can value something can be important, but without actually fully clocking it. So then you did get involved. You did rat-tat-tat, knock on the door of the Sheffield Buddhist Centre, and I think you certainly met friendly people there, and people that took you on, certainly one in particular. And then came to Windhorse, and we quickly struck up the friendship. But I wanted to ask you, it was not so long after we'd have both arrived at Windhorse that Arthasiddhi entered our lives, and you're talking about this recently, like his approach to friendship and how he both sort of took us on, didn't he? Can you say a bit about what it was like meeting Arthasiddhi and I guess being on the end of his friendship, and how that kind of informed your sense of the possibilities of friendship?
I think there's quite a lot to that. I think in part it was situational, in that we were sharing a room in the same GFR group, working in the same team, and really enthusiastic about friendship in a very earnest and quite naive kind of way.
I would say speak for yourself, but that is not what I'm saying.
Speaking for myself. And well, we started to experience difficulties, didn't we? I think I started to. So there were elements. Probably it's just kind of competition, wasn't it? Kind of two young men, and actually kind of way too intensive sort of context and mode of engagement. And so that's one aspect of it. That getting to know Arthasiddhi at that time, he was very skillful in just helping me see some of the things I didn't realise were going on, actually. I think he mentioned, do you think there might be an element of competition going on as well? So I think that's an aspect that Arthasiddhi was a very effective Kalyana Mitra in the area of friendship. He's got a very, very strong sort of sense of friendship and instincts as to what's going on with people. And so that's one aspect, that meeting Arthasiddhi, I think, enabled our friendship to flourish, which has been a really, really important, friendship. I think really our friendship was how I got ordained, and I think that was the sort of cutting edge, if you like. But Arthasiddhi was a crucial factor. So that's one aspect of what it was like meeting Arthasiddhi. But I think for me there were elements of I don't know quite how you'd put it. It's sort of somewhere between when I met Arthasiddhi, I in a way, I hadn't looked up to a lot of men, actually, a lot of elder men. I'd sort of been a little bit sort of wary. I hadn't met that many elder men that I really looked up to and admired and kind of loved, really. And Arthasiddhi that's putting it rather black and white. It's not like I hadn't looked up to people, but Arthasiddhi sort of embodied something for me that I just really responded to. In a way, I sort of responded to on another level, you see what I mean? He was living something that was what my life was about, without me knowing what my life was about. See what I mean? It's when you encounter it, isn't it, that you come into contact with it in yourself. We might have ideas about what our life is about, but ideas aren't enough. Otherwise, we'd be able to say this is what my life's about, and so I'm going to go about it in this way. Actually, it's sort of deeper than that, isn't it? So there was something of that. I don't know how you kind of articulate that. I've come to think of it in terms of I'd met my teacher. That's what it was. And part of that was that Arthasiddhi was a disciple. That's what I was encountering, someone who was engaging with life in a different way. That different way being, I am a disciple and I have a teacher. That was somehow very alive in Arthasiddhi's life. And I loved that. I don't think I would have said that at the time. I didn't know quite, it was less articulated, less conscious really, but I just sort of really responded to Arthasiddhi. But I think that was a key part of it, that he was a disciple, and I was meeting discipleship, which is really what a teacher, of course, is. He was teaching me to sort of showing me how to be a disciple. But part of that, big part of Arthasiddhi's practice is also friendship. It's very, very central for him. So, and an aspect of that is he's very, 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 very generous-hearted, very, very responsive to people, sort of remarkably responsive to people. So there's this sort of fulsome response to people, and that was part of what. That was also part of what I sort of immediately felt. This is surely what life is about. I can't, experience myself as quite introverted, quite shy. So Arthasiddhi seemed very different from me, but actually it's also not true in certain ways. So that I think that sort of, those were two key elements. I think Arthasiddhi is friendliness, capacity for friendship, love of friendship, manifesting when you meet him as this responsiveness to people, as well as this sense that he's actually he's a disciple. I think those two things are very, very strong in Arthasiddhi's life, and conveyed that to me. Yeah.
I think that second point, maybe the first point as well, but you're talking about his friendliness and his responsiveness, and like what that does, the effect of that. And you said maybe that's what life is about. I think in that we're nudging in the direction, aren't we, of what the Buddha said, in the whole of the spiritual life, and maybe this thing about discipleship as well. Yeah, just also picking up on what you said. I've not heard you say this before, that our friendship was kind of how you got ordained.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was quite that difficult, but that also, I think, is maybe that also speaks to this, what the Buddha said, in that through friendship you grew, grew into something.
Yeah. Well, Bhante says that brilliant thing, doesn't he, in that short paper. What is it? The good friend, something friend and the spiritual friend, or something like that. He says that what the Buddha's getting at in that exchange with Ananda is he's saying to Ananda, no, it's not that. And Bhante draws out, what is he saying it's not? And Ananda says it's manly effort. So it's half manly effort and half friendship, which sounds pretty good, isn't it? If I was Ananda,
that's right.
I'd be thinking, I think I've got it. And Bante's saying what the Buddha is refuting is the notion that it's possible to have an individualistic spiritual life. That notion is completely erroneous. That's what he's saying. So then it does link in with discipleship, doesn't it? That if you are at all kind of, what could you say, socially aware, you're seeing that actually you're not, you know, your effort kind of arises because you come into contact with inspiring people. Your spiritual life is shaped, is learnt from people. It's a brilliant point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so counter to our Western individualistic sort of notions that we will naturally understand the spiritual life within.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's hard not to conceive of the spiritual life from, well, we've only got where we are now. I'm just remembering Bhante in Vimlakirti Nadesha talking about, well, it's the inconceivable emancipation, freedom, it's inconceivable. It really stresses that we can't imagine it from where we are now. We can't conceive of what we're trying to kind of evoke. And yeah, I think part of that is maybe that we see friendship from me and mine. It's like, okay, yeah, friendship sounds good. Yeah, I'll have a friend. I'll have another friend. Great, you know, that's going to help me in my practice. But no. Yeah, you mentioned climbing. I think as men, we're often looking for adventure. Certainly, scanning around the room. Certainly, when we're a bit younger, we're looking for adventure. Maybe there's something of that adventurous spirit that continues all through man's life. That was clearly manifest with you when you were younger through climbing. Looking back now, you've given all this time to practice and to friendship, to the order. Do you regret not doing more climbing? Does what you've done, does it feel like it's had the spirit of adventure woven into it at times?
Interesting. Yeah. In one of those short collections of quotes, there's adventure is the soul of friendship, which is always struck.
quote.
It's not Bhante, I can't remember who it is. But that's always sort of struck me. So I did actually. So I kind of stopped climbing when I got involved in the movement, partly moving away from Sheffield down to Cambridge.
Flatter.
And in some ways that was possibly a bit of a sort of cutting off, not majorly actually. But I went back to it about, actually at the time, God, when was it? It was 2008. I went back to it. It became important for me again, and I didn't quite know why, but I just had to sort of do it. So it had a good effect on me, and I realised that in the process that it was about challenge. It was that in a certain way my life wasn't challenging. I'm an odd mix of kind of sort of cautious and reckless. No, well, I have been cautious and reckless. I've sort of swung between those two. Climbing largely is sort of, it requires an element of recklessness. But I can kind of get trapped in my caution, and climbing sort of takes me out of that. There was a time, and in a way that sort of indicated that there was something not quite in balance in my life, you see what I mean. I now don't miss climbing at all. If I was in Sheffield, I'd go out with the guys and climb, but I don't actually miss it. It is a bit like toys, my relationship with it. Bhante says that about kind of as a analogy of kind of renunciation, doesn't he? It's a bit like letting go of toys. I feel like my life is plenty adventurous enough. There's plenty enough sort of risk. The Dharma life requires risk, really. Friendship, people requires risk. I think it's easy to think of friendship in a bit of a one-sided way, but you have to take risks with people. To get into communication. Yeah, so no, I don't feel that it's missing from my life at all. In actual fact, I feel like it's gone deeper. There's the whole weekend warrior. There's that American term, the weekend warrior, isn't there? Whereby you've got this very sort of sedate, conventional life, and then at the weekend you know you go out and you climb rocks and you know, kill buffalo, or I don't know, whatever it is. The sort of weekend warrior, and I could see that in my life as a climber, that, you know, I was really alive on the rock face, and then actually I wasn't alive enough in my life. Yeah.
Just wanted to pick up on what comment you just made just then about getting into communication, like, takes risks. And it just struck me that well, that like getting into communication is I think we don't always see the possibility of that, do we? It's easy to just take relationships, friendships at a kind of status quo level, just, you know, the other person is as they are, I'm as I am, this is this friendship, and how often do we actually consider the possibility of getting into communication? What, you know, what might be the benefits, the fruits of that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think perhaps particularly as men, I think very easily, if something's a bit uncomfortable, or you feel slightly slighted, or maybe this person doesn't really meet up with me, you just kind of quietly don't meet up with them again. You know, nothing is said, and we sort of just part company. Bante puts it in terms of often for us friendship isn't important enough to have problems, which I thought was really good. You know, are you okay to say, actually, I was a bit bit disappointed that, you know, I was a bit hurt that you didn't seem to want to meet up with me. We don't. That is not that is a risk as a man to sort of say that, isn't it? But I think in all sorts of ways there are risks. It's not. It's you know, it's not sort of I don't know, life-threatening risks, is it? But there are all sorts of risks there in our interactions.
Which is why it's important, isn't it, to if we're enthusiastic and explicit that we do want to be friends, then actually articulating that, because then you've got more sort of space, haven't you, to say that, you know, those kind of things, like, when you said that. It's easy just to leave it, isn't it? Kind of slide off.
And I think that's where adventure is the soul of friendship. You know, what I notice is in the ordination process, I made a whole load of friends, and that's because we were challenged. It was an adventure. We were stretched. We were kind of pushed back on ourselves, and therefore we did open up. We did say, oh, you know, I'm kind of finding this really challenging. We shared sides of ourselves that you need to share if you're going to develop friendships that we wouldn't necessarily have chosen to share. It was contextual. So I think that's one thing. Again, perhaps there's an element of different temperaments doing it different ways, but I think that is one thing with men, to make a generalisation, that you need to be involved in something together, stretched by something. Coffee is important, but it's not enough to get to that. So going away on the working retreat, going on retreat is doing things together, and in that context you'll find that you see things about each other that you just wouldn't see over coffee. I think we sort of need that as men to actually form friendships. We had it in spades, didn't we? You know, we were stretched
no shortage,
in all sorts of ways, and we saw each other more fully. And when you see that, you can't help but respond, and then you're involved. You know, real connections are kind of made. It's not just sort of, oh, you know, that was an interesting conversation over coffee. You know, real connections are kind of made.
I think that dovetails quite nicely into my next question. In friendship, in spiritual friendship, we see people up close, don't we? Yeah. So I wondered if you think like there's something in that seeing and knowing of another, maybe feeling for another, that is, there's something within that is a reflection of our kind of going beyond ourselves, our fixed self.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is. It's a reaching out. There's that quote, isn't there, that in imaginative ethics about ethics. The spirit of ethics is love. I think it's Shelley, or a going out of our own.
The great secret
nature
of morals is love.
Is love. That's it. Yeah, or a going out of our own nature to identify with the beautiful in thought, action, and deed, not our own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happens in friendship. I think responsiveness is a good word for it, because when you see someone else's human qualities, you can't but respond. So it's not a kind of going beyond yourself in some sort of self-deliberated kind of way. Now I'm going to focus on going beyond self. It's not like that. It's something that you find is the nature of life, I suppose. That you find yourself responding to the beautiful qualities of this other human being. You find that you just naturally identify with them, as opposed to exclusively identifying with me.
Yeah. Like that's inherently part of who we are.
Yeah, it's something we discover, not something that we decide.
Yeah.
Of course, the conditions for that arising are crucial. That we need to tend to the conditions, go on retreat with people, kind of stick in there with people.
Yeah.
Friend people.
I've often thought that in relation to like public speaking, like people want people. You see somebody giving a talk, you want the person. But actually, that's across the board. People want people.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And I guess what comes to mind is marriage. That's so often kind of how that gets expressed. And you can get married, fine, but it's like, don't leave it at that.
Yeah. It can't be a sort of it can't be an exclusive thing if it's central to life, and that's what I saw with Art of Prayer. He's living it. It's sort of central in his life. He's able to live this, and that was really, really attractive. Yeah. I thought I can sort of learn to live that more. Yeah.
What have I written here? Okay. This is a good question. So yes, I think with any aspect of the spiritual life, it's easy to hear. It's easy for us to listen to Arthasiddhi and think, fine, he's inspired by friendship. Good for him. But what about me in my life, where I am, wherever that is. But actually, the journey into deeper friendship, the journey into that's what we're kind of evoking here is always from here. So for you, it's always from where you are now, and for all of us, it's from right here, the shape of us, who and how we are now, and the state of our relationships, and the state of our capacities and availability in our life. This is a question. Do you have any pointers as to how we might go about finding that next step for ourselves?
Yeah. Oh God. Well, in a way, I guess I was just as you were formulating that question, I was just sort of thinking there's perhaps a danger that we think of friendship as a temperamental thing, that he's a sort of friendship type and I'm not, I'm a sort of doctrine type or something. And I'm not sure that we're talking about something of that nature with friendship. I think we're talking about something more essential to life. And yes, some people might have more of a capacity for friendship, than others, but I think it gets close to the heart of life. Presumably, that's something what the Buddha means by friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. You know, you could misunderstand that, thinking that you need to be different from how you are. That's not what's being said. But it's saying there's something really essential about Kalyana Mitra, about friendship, and you need to find your own way into that. So I think it is necessarily a sort of personal path, an individual path. Friendship, you can't be a friend other than how you befriend, if you see what I mean. So yeah, maybe that's an important starting point. And then, how to do it? I mean, I still find it a puzzle how to befriend people. I don't feel like it's something that I've got it now. I mean, I've got very good friends, but actually, if it stops there, that's Johnson's thing, isn't it? A man who's not constantly keeping friendships, I can't quite remember the quote, but will find himself alone or something like that. So really, you're sort of it's a muscle, friendship, that you need to sort of keep exercising, and that means befriending new people. And personally, I feel sort of at a loss sometimes as to how to do that. But somehow you kind of muddle through. I think in some ways the intention is more crucial than the skill. I think somehow that does come through if you stick at it. So I think that's another factor as well, that actually kind of it is an active thing, and you befriend the other person. At the same time, so it's important to sort of see that that's of the nature of it. Unless you take responsibility for your wish to have friends in your life, and act on that, irrespective, or as opposed to just being defined by circumstance, you won't end up developing that muscle. If you don't develop that muscle, then you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to make friends, because you moved away from the movement, didn't you? So that sort of thing is going to happen. You can't make a few friends and then they go across the other side of the world. So I think that's part of it. But there is the other side, isn't there? There is being more sensitive to, well, in a way, there's choosing, if you like, judicious choice of who your friends are. That's the other side of it.
Pick a good one.
Pick a good one. Yeah. And that's not always easy to. It's not always obvious, I don't think. But one factor is that you need to have some regularity of contact. That's pretty crucial. I mean, occasionally you kind of meet friends and somehow, oddly, you're just sort of friends from the off, and you can keep up irrespective of circumstance. So that is also possible, but I think not best taken as your approach. See what I mean? That's great if it happens, but don't take that as your approach. I think it's more that you need to sort of look at, well, who are the people that I am actually able to sort of go on retreat with, spend time with, have some sort of regularity. And of course, that's something that you don't sort of make one firm decision and then kind of text the person incessantly until they cave in. It's you sort of have to sort of try out, don't you? Test out your social environment, if you like, for the opportunities of friendship. So you actually need to sort of be sort of generous and outgoing before you actually start to find people that you could be friends with. Do you see what I mean? So I think it starts with that sort of generous, outgoing sort of sociability. It doesn't mean you need to suddenly be an extrovert if you're an introvert. Actually, introverts can be better friends even, because somehow things are sort of communicated more clearly, rather than as kind of gregariousness, which doesn't always convey I'm interested in being your friend. See what I mean? Yeah. But I think that element of just that generous impulse to sort of go out to people, take an interest in people, can mean that you can start to discover in your environment, oh look, actually I think there's an opportunity here for friendship. Someone I've been befriending at the centre at the moment, not clear to me that we could become friends, but you have to sort of go beyond the, oh, I don't think this is going to work out for me sort of modus operandi, into a sort of generous one, even if what's coming back isn't that encouraging sometimes. Yeah, so there's that, but as I say, you also need to be sensitive to, is this going somewhere with this person? And then you can take that deeper. You can say, hey, it'd be great to go on retreat with you. Why don't we go on retreat together? And that can show you whether there is opportunity for a deeper friendship, if you're actually in the context where friendships can kind of flourish together. Yeah.
So as well as this generous impulse, and wish to, awareness of the possibility of, and wish to befriend, there's also some thought and consideration that needs to go in. Yeah. And it just strikes me that's sort of, it feels a bit sort of, could feel a bit clunky or seems a bit unfashionable. That I think we can have a sort of, or a romantic kind of view of friendship. If it's happening, if we click, we just click, and if we don't, then whatever, man. But actually, what is of value, and do we actually need to think, is this, could this be a good friend, and is there availability there? And, there's a curious coming together. I mean, as you were speaking earlier, I almost said I didn't have the gap, but what a boon, when you have a friend. It's kind of like nothing in your life, like the difference between having, we can put energy and attention into lots of sort of aspects of our life, but to have, even just to have one good friend, like the difference that can make to us, kind of can be everything, that sense of connection, different perspective. You just imagine like not having that, and it's kind of like a world of difference. Yeah. So what a wonder, what a boon, what a delight. So then it can feel funny to, on the other hand, be thinking about, being in a way like calculating, or at least very sort of rationally considered. But I think we do need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're just evoking the significance of friendship there. I think it's very, very difficult to get a sense of that. It's almost a bit like sort of insight, actually, I think, in the sense that, it's not until you get a cancer diagnosis that you really see that impermanence is true. And really sort of your perspective on life shifts. And I think so too with friendship. It's not until you're in that sort of situation that you see that sort of existential situation, that you see how valuable friendship is. It's a bit like there's that lovely poem, isn't there? You have to lose things. Naomi Shihab, on kindness. Before you know the value of kindness, you have to lose things. And I think actually, in a way, our lives are too comfortable for us to really fully see the value of friendship. I mean, I've seen that with Arthasiddhi dying, that actually there's nothing really that can help him other than the Dharma and friendship. And it's not that that's particular to that point of life, that's true of me. It's just most of the time I'm a bit sort of out of touch with what life is really about. And so it's to that extent that I think it's sort of almost of the nature of insight to really see the importance of friendship. So I think it's, you know, Bante's talked about you know, somewhere, I can't remember where, he says something like, I think he's responding to someone saying, could friendship help us develop insight?
Oh, yeah.
And he says, well, could insight help us develop friendship? So again, that sort of overturns our sort of individualistic, I'm going to sort of see reality and sort of break through sort of paradigm, doesn't it? And I think we could, well, just see, as the Buddha's inviting us in that well-known phrase, development in spiritual life as development in Kalyana Mitrata, that actually your life can develop into a richer and deeper and truer network of Kalyana Mitrata. We could sort of equally well see our, you know, our spiritual development, my spiritual development in those terms. Maybe we need sort of a number of different paradigms to see the spiritual life. But Bante's certainly inviting us to see it through that one as well.
Which is quite a unique voice, isn't it? Like, just thinking there's lots of teachers teaching insight and different methods to insight, and if you put that into Google, you get lots of results.
Yeah.
Not so with friendship.
Yeah.
I think we may have answered this, but yeah, it's just struck me actually thinking about this. I'm not sure. Yeah, kind of realised this before. You know, in this saying of the Buddha, that he's not saying it's really necessary. Like it's the most important thing for your spiritual life. He's equating the two, which is just kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So it's easy. When we're thinking about friendship, to think in terms of benefits, isn't it? Like it could challenge us in certain ways. It gives us, I mean, even just what I said, like how wonderful to have a friend. Like great, you know, I've got a friend. You know, it's good for me, isn't it? It's so easy to think in terms of what it gives us. Gives us, you know, what the wherewithal to practice spiritual life, to gain enlightenment, even. But that's not actually what he's saying. He actually equates the two. How are we to understand that? Do you think we can? Do you think we can understand it, or is there another way?
Yeah, I think that's really well put. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, that we have to start from where we are. So we have to relate to friendship to a certain extent, you know, in terms of how this is going to benefit me, because that is the nature of what's, you know, here, a kind of sort of self-interested, you know, and I suppose that's the brilliant thing about the Metabhavana, isn't it? That we can use that self-interest to take us beyond a narrow self-interest from the first stage into the second, into the third. So I don't think we need to feel bad about that. That is our starting point, and you just need to work out what is the next step for you, how to sort of take this further, how to explore this further. But I think you're right. I think what I was speaking with Bante, and it was lovely being there in the room, and Bante saying, well, that is quite a radical statement. It's lovely just being with Bante, thinking, you know, we've gained so much from Bante's thought and written out in books and in talks and seminars and all that sort of stuff. But there it's just with Bante thinking, and he was saying this statement that friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. He was just saying, well, that is quite a radical statement, isn't it? So it does sort of overturn the way we normally think about things. And I think you're right. I think we can't fully understand it. I think it's something that we need to try out and live and discover more and more. I think in a way that's what's being said, isn't it? That it's the whole of the spiritual life. So that cannot be comprehended in advance of the event. It's something that we need to try out and deepen into. I certainly feel like my understanding of that has deepened, but sitting there with Bante saying that, I feel like, oh God, I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, I haven't got this. I don't understand this. And I think that's our situation, really. It is, after all, the word of the Buddha. So we haven't got the Buddha's understanding, but we can be open to it and discover it through practicing it. Yeah.
I think we're coming towards the end of our time. You've said a bit about Arthasiddhi and the importance of friendship and how that's been highlighted with his situation. Just wondered if you could tell us a bit about how your friendship has changed in this last year.
Good question. I don't know if I can fully, because it's been such a particular time that I suspect I won't fully understand this time until after Arthasiddhi has died. It's been a kind of extraordinary time. It's a bit like as he's been pulled over that line we draw between life and death, a false line. He's been pulled over into a truer perspective. I've been dragged over with kind of some of my clothing got caught in. I've been sort of dragged over as well. So that's been extraordinary. Of course, upsetting. Bits of grief popping up, but also a lot of love, a lot of gratitude, a lot of, I don't know what, just seeing life differently. And I guess it's quite an intimate time to share with somebody. Arthasiddhi's been extraordinary how he's responded to it. So that's something that I'm not going to fully be able to understand the effects of until after, for years, I think, because I've heard of other people being in the same situation as me and it being very different. But there's something about the intimacy of it. Death is something we can only deal with alone. We can only experience alone. And that brings us back to our existential aloneness. And at the same time, somehow Arthasiddhi has shared some of that experience with me. And that is very, very sort of intimate kind of contact with somebody that, oddly we're sort of longing for. Intimate's a word that can be used to mean different things, can't it? But I hope maybe you get a sense of what I mean by that. So I think we've just sort of been drawn very closely together as a consequence of this time. It's interesting him being my preceptor as well. We sort of move between friend and a certain way sort of carer, friend. He's my preceptor. We have we have a very good laugh. I mean, he's hilarious, is Arthur, as many people know. But we move sort of. There's this lovely sense of fluidity in the conversations, and I suppose a lack of ego, a lack of position in the sort of egoistically imposed sort of sense, which is the nature of friendship, isn't it? Bhante says that about hierarchy, doesn't he? That that actually you approach the teacher with metta initially, and so i.e. friendship, you come into communication, and out of that it will become clear where you sort of stand in relation to each other. But what I like about that is that sort of sense of fluidity, not sort of fixing positions, roles, not fixing into roles, and that I think that has only deepened actually through this time. Maybe that's the simplest, most sort of essential way of putting it. Actually, I think roles have just sort of dissolved. Which weren't there in a very pronounced way before, but they were there actually. It's much more. It's closer to how Bhante talks about the guru in that talk, where it's called "Do we need a guru? Is a guru necessary?" He says the guru's role is just to be themselves, and the disciple just to be themselves in relation to the guru. I feel we're sort of closer than we've ever been to that kind of very, very rare, I think, kind of rare for me anyway, kind of communication. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah. Moving to hear about, and I think we'll see after the break. But I think we've maybe managed to get a little bit under the bonnet of friendship, and
good masculine image.
Yeah.
Metaphor.
Yeah, get a car in there somewhere. So yeah, let's leave it there, and then we'll have a tea break, and then we'll come back and have a chance to ask some questions. But for now, let's give Arthasiddhi a round of applause.
Thank you.